In the last session, we discussed about different aspects relating to market segmentation and market targeting. We looked at qualitative as well as quantitative approaches to the strategic objective of going from current position to the future strategic position, characterizing each one of those segments, growth opportunities within each segment, the different possibilities. We estimated the market numbers, sales revenues, and we also looked at the through those different matrices that we looked at, that how we will create the package that will be compelling for the customer to give us the intended position in that segment. In this session, we will look at some additional dimensions in this respect, emerging because of the dominance of networks information network, communication network, ICT enabled social network, and what impacts are created on market opportunity identification, market opportunity analysis, and strategies for availing those opportunities. And how these impacts create alternatives or finer possibilities. The key point here, we discussed that somewhat in the when we discussed about that smartphone example in the previous session. We were discussing the possibility that Nintendo, which is now a video game manufacturer, who also make handheld games, and a possibility that they might like to come into they might add the phone feature to their mobile PlayStations. And as a result, competition to Nokia or Apple, a new type of competition will arise across boundaries, meaning the gaming industry, electronic games are not exactly, certain types of electronic games are already quite popular, like Angry Birds and so on, which are meant for your mobile phone. But there are many other games which are far more sophisticated and needs larger screens for that experience, use different kind of sensing devices, so that the screen will depict if you are throwing a cricket ball. Now, such things are not available on phones today, but some of these gaming companies may want to come into the phone market with these new kinds of offerings, leveraging new technologies for display or new technologies emerging in the sensing and actuating market and so on. So, the point here is therefore, when we look at this segmentation, now it is a little bit more complex in today's networked world, because competition may come across boundaries. Also very important to note that many times today, as a famous article that appeared in McKinsey Quarterly said, that the marketing game or the strategy game is spider versus spider, meaning that it is not a game between company A and company B, but between alliance A and alliance B. So, alliance A is a network and alliance B is another network. So, we have today for example, one network which is around iPhone. So, there are developers, game developers, different business application developers, different entertainment application developers, all working on the iPhone platform. And we have another network working on the Android platform, developing games, business applications, educational applications, personal productivity applications. And so, it is not only a marketing strategic tussle between Apple and HTC, but it is also between the alliance on the Android platform versus the alliance on the iPhone platform, the iOS. And what does it mean in terms of our further understanding required for marketing strategy formulation? Concepts introduced earlier, need to revisit. One is the value system. The value system is actually the different processes, activities coming together to create the Android offering. And the value chain is within HTC or within Nokia or within Apple iPhone SBU, the different activities that will be looking at inputs going to the output. So, output is what you are offering to the market. Inputs are your different inputs coming from your vendors, from your alliance chain partners, and in between is your process block, where you are looking at right from material sourcing to the final product packaging and delivery to the retail shelves, this whole thing. So, this is the value chain. The value chain as well as the value system are important considerations for developing marketing strategy. So, taking the iPhone example, which created a unique bundle of values, created a phenomenally winning combination. To create such winning combination, understanding from them, we can look at identify these 5 generic ways. One is the customization of the offering. In this case, elimination of the keyboard in the iPhone, creating keyboard on the touch screen itself, radically expanding the reach and the access. Many new categories of users came up around the iPhone, primarily people who were interested in mobile games or mobile entertainment as opposed to mobile communication. Once this new category of usage emerged for iPhone, mobile entertainment, they built a community around it, community of suppliers, contributors. So, the success of iPhone is possibly more due to the community created through iTunes, from where you can actually get a lecture on marketing, as well as you can get very exotic music, Japanese flutes, or you can get popular rock music, or you can get video clips from YouTube. So, a whole community got built up using the potential offered by that platform. It created collaboration across these communities, and finally created what we can call a new to the world experience. So, if you talk to people who buy iPhone, as reported on number of social networks, people talk more about the experience rather than the product feature. So, you see here that a market segment can almost be created out of by combining older segments and creating new value, and you can therefore expand the segment. So, how do we pursue, how do we create new marketing phenomena, such fantastic strategic achievements? Is it just by hit and run? Is it an accident, or can there be a design, systematic approach to it? So, this diagram that you see on your screen is an approach that is not prescriptive, but a very good guidance to do this. It starts with uncovering, identifying unmet needs, underserved needs. Identifying the specific customer that you want to pursue, advantages that you want to offer, and some of the qualifying steps, like is the market ready for such a product or such a product service bundle, and of course, then we have to estimate the numbers. Now, how do we uncover, discover, find those unmet, underserved or unserved needs of the customer? I will again use the iPhone example. Now, here I mean they had a phone, many companies had a phone at that time when Apple came into this 5 or 6 years back. There were major players like world dominant players like Nokia or Motorola or Sony Ericsson. Now, as opposed to Nokia or Motorola, Sony Ericsson, because of the previous success of Sony with Walkman, if you look back you will find that even before Apple came up with the iPhone, they had Sony Ericsson had phones which had Walkman features. Now, at that stage, this is a very important set of guidance tools, that you follow the customer. And what these people did at Apple is to look at the customer's process for getting music. I will now focus on music. Later on, it has been the iTunes service has been expanded to include many other types of content, but let us focus on music. So, they found that they followed the process and they understood that the customers had to go to a place to buy a cassette or a CD. If you bought a CD, maybe there were 4 songs or 4 pieces of instrumental compositions on that CD out of 12 which you really liked. So, they understood that customer will be quite interested if they had an opportunity to pick and choose. So, maybe you have 5 CDs from which you like 2 from one, 4 and from other, and you want to create your own combination. The trend was actually observed earlier when there were services like Napster, where people exchanged music, which later on was closed down, but these trends they observed. So, they took this pain that the customer had or the sort of the time and cost the customer incurred in going to a place, to a music store. They also observed that when people go to music store to buy a certain particular CD, they also look at other. So, they understood that there is a browsing component which is attractive to the buyer. So, buyers were interested to buy single songs or single instrumental composition. Buyers were interested to browse. Buyers were interested to create their own playlist, picking up 1 from here, 2 from there, 4 from here and so on, and combining. Great understanding. Now, it is not that this individual choice prominence that has emerged just today. It has been there. It has been there when we had those long playing discs and so on, where you had 10 songs and you wanted 2. So, it already in the older players we had this facility of skip, that you can switch from song number 1 to song number 5. They put it all together and created a unique composition that met the underserved or unmet needs. They created a scenario of the ideal experience, and by that time technology was available to deliver a single song over the internet. You could browse through a large repository on the iTunes website and pick and choose and create your own playlist. So, they identified unmet, underserved, unserved needs, leveraged technology that was available, created a scenario of the ideal customer experience, and made it possible for all of these to come together to eliminate the key frustration points of buying 12 songs when you needed only 2 out of those. We observed that the customers wanted to skip. So, eliminate the need of buying 12 and skipping and going from song number 1 to song number 5, allow the customer to compose his own playlist. So, I have now put together this diagram which looks at the customer's buying process for music purchase, looks at the pre-purchase process, the purchase process itself, and the post-purchase process. So, this is the kind of analysis. First, you do an overall identification, get into qualitative analysis of questions, ask these questions of what are the steps, who gets involved, where is the process taking place. All of these can be related to your marketing mix issues. What is the nature of the product bundle, product service bundle, what kind of price point, what purchase process, where is the purchase place. All of these can be then answered and finally put together in a diagram like this. It is important to create a visual like this because it helps you to explain your marketing strategy to your other colleagues in operations, in finance and so on. This is a better way. You need to do all these qualitative analysis, but finally you should be able to compile a picture like this. It is also important here to note that this focus on the post purchase, I would say the music vendors in the past somewhat ignored the post purchase scenario. In fact, that is a flaw of marketing in general, that we are still carrying on some of our old sales or production orientation, that we are happy once the product or service has been sold and we do not pay much attention to these issues like post purchase satisfaction, the buying experience, for example, the buying experience. linking repeat purchase with buying experience, linking repeat purchase with the quality of content as perceived post purchase, linking repeat purchase with delivery performance. This is another important aspect in marketing strategy that now dominates electronic marketing. Because in electronic marketing, your strategy is far more susceptible to word of mouth, to the social networks. So, if your performance with respect to on time delivery is good, if your buying process or ease of buying because of you offer cash on delivery can make a young company like Flipkart very successful against entrenched competitors who have been in this electronic merchandising market for last 10 or 15 years, who had been using credit cards as the means of value transaction. Now, with the cash on delivery mechanism and the good hassle free experience, the newer generations of e-tailers, electronic retailers in India have created expanded markets. And these strategies, successful strategies, emerged from focusing on post purchase. Even at IIT Kanpur campus, we have been studying, and we can see that some of the electronic marketers are able to continuously enhance their customer loyalty. So, even though many of the new companies have come up with offerings with respect to shoes or clothes, the companies who started with books and music are now able to expand and leveraging their customer loyalty because of this easy buying process, hassle free, arrival on time, etc. They are now able to expand their portfolio from books and music to luggage and stationery and jewelry and so on. So, this consumer buying process, mapping it and combining that with the opportunity analysis, answering these qualitative questions can lead you to a winning combination. Some of the issues relating to consumer buying behavior also need to be studied to take proper advantage of an identified opportunity. So, the opportunity analysis, combining those analytics into a winning package like the iPhone iTunes combination, can be further enhanced when we understand the behavioral aspect, the occasion, the psychographic and the benefits that the customers are looking for, and it can become far more compelling. These consumer behavior issues we will take up also in greater depth later on, but we are now more on opportunity identification and segmentation and targeting and positioning. And here some of the other issues, additional issues that we need to look at are segments that are easy to identify, segments that can be reached, these access points etc., we have already discussed. Meaningfulness of the segmentation, can we serve B1 more profitably than B2, but of course, that cannot be the sole determinant of your resource allocation between B1 and B2, because B2 may be costlier to serve today, but may have a much higher growth potential. So, it is costlier today to reach out into the rural market for your mobile phone offering, but definitely this is a market which is far lesser served than the metro market. So, you need to, the segmentation meaningfulness has to be seen in terms of also these relative issues like competitive intensity, whether there are indirect competitors as we were discussing in case of smartphone, the possibility of Nintendo coming into the market of HTC and so on. And if we take that example, then we are looking at an adjacent competitor. But when Apple came with iPhone and challenged Nokia or Motorola, they almost created a substitution product, because the iPhone is much more than a phone, right. Same thing has happened when solid state storage came in, substituted the CD as a popular mode of storage. So much so that today you will find laptops which may not even have a CD or a DVD drive, because most of it is being done, the content storage and content transfer are all being done through those USB digital sticks. They are now able to offer several gigabytes, terabytes in a very small size, much more convenient, much more stable, and as a result you are able to reduce the weight of the laptop or the notebook, and on the whole therefore, it is now making rapid strides and has created huge problem challenge for companies like Moser Bear, who came into the market and grew very well when the optical media like floppy drive, DVD, CD were doing very well. Of course, they are also creating, they have created new opportunities in solar cell, and they are also getting into newer research, for example, when DVDs 1 over, in those days there were actually large discs, but the VCRs won against those video disc players. But the video disc came back, it failed at that time against the VCR, but it came back with some further modification and enhancement in the technology as VCD, then to DVD, and now the DVD is challenged by the digital solid state storage. So, you see here that competition can come from adjacent competitors, substitute products, substitute producers. So, when we look at these segments, we have to, each segment will have to be also evaluated with respect to this direct and indirect competition, besides looking at the opportunities that you have identified, the questions that you have answered to create the compelling value, the calculation, the chain ratio method that we discussed in the previous session to estimate the market, deciding on what actions you will take to reach this segment, but also we have to look at this competition mapping. Now, this competition mapping we have discussed in depth in the previous session, couple of sessions back. I bring you back to that discussion to discuss a specific case. So, this relates to, once a segment opportunity has been identified, quantified, characterized using the techniques that we have discussed, you can summarize that by using the bullet points in this slide and the next one, where you look at level of unmet need and the magnitude of unconstrained opportunity, level of interaction between the major customer segments, like we discussed, there may be certain interaction between the student segment and the gaming segment and so on, the likely rate of growth of each segment, the size and the volume that for each segment using that chain ratio method and the other techniques that we discussed, and which can lead you to also, once you have the sales revenue numbers and you have your cost of goods sold, you can also develop the relative profitability of each segment. And you can also then summarize these and apply to something like a diagram to compare the different alternatives. So, competitive vulnerability, technical vulnerability, magnitude of unmet need, interaction between segments, likely rate of growth, technical, well, these two are actually almost same. So, maybe we can just take one of them, market size, level of profitability, and based on that you can position your, analyze your each one of the opportunities, the B1, B2, B3. and we will apply this to a case now, sort of an imaginary case. We will try to achieve these steps, but let us look at. So, we are looking at an imaginary company called Mob-Invest.com. The business proposition: provide investment related guidance, stock market investment related guidance, and capability to do buying and selling of stocks on your mobile phone. An imaginary, I mean not so unrealistic, it is to a large extent already available, but let us say a company which has now come up with a total combination, and they have determined that these are the steps that a customer is interested in. That view current business and financial news, read analysis and commentary from different stock market analysts, financial services, if necessary learn about certain type of investing. Suppose you want to invest in derivatives, then to learn about derivatives as opposed to current stocks. Then plan investment strategy, place order, track your investment portfolio, and of course, periodic reporting. Now, this company has identified that these are the unmet and underserved needs. That today daily update is available from some services, but there is no service available which is round the clock giving update from the Indian market, from the US market, from the Australian market, from the Japanese market. So, there are many investments which are quite sensitive to global developments. So, a mobile based reporting which gives round the clock information, real time quotes and comprehensive charts. These are identified as unmet and underserved. Maybe they have found that there is inadequate information available for education and investment opportunity, personalized investment tools. A senior citizen, 65 years old, who wants to now look at the stock market as opposed to bank fixed deposit, quite worried about risks involved, but still interested. And Mob-Invest is looking at this market segment and have analyzed that these are the unmet and underserved needs. These are the process that this segment of customer is interested to follow. Based on this, they can also do an analysis of comparison, that how they stack against that this is our company, and these are again imaginary players in this market called Share On, Your Wealth and Hello Money. And from the previous application, the previous analysis, here we see there are 7 process steps that usually a customer follows in this domain in its entirety of availing this service. You can now combine them under 3 major heads. reporting, the quality of reporting, the depth of reporting, the frequency of reporting, technology of delivery, technology in terms of user interface, technology in terms of push versus pull, that means coming to your phone automatically or your search and find. So, that is what we call push technology versus pull technology, and brand recognition. Now, you do a quick analysis against your offering against your competitors. This kind of simple charts are very useful to come up with a final. So, we can't arrive at this without starting from here. We have to go through the whole process of developing the entire chart of the consumer buying process for the product or of the service. We have to understand the customer in more depth, understand the segments in more depth, understand the competition in more depth, understand the competitor map, match with the company's resources, and then come up with, apply that to your case, develop the key buying steps, the processes involved in the customer's acquisition and consumption process, and finally come up with a chart like this, which tells you that what are the strengths that you are going to deploy. So, as you see in this case, Mod-Invest, the hypothetical case that we are discussing, has decided that it is going to focus its marketing resources and technological and financial resources on the quality of reporting, the quality of guidance, because it has chosen senior citizens, new investors, pensioners and retired individuals as their major market segment to start with, and they have understood that the quality of advisory service and reporting service will be a winning strategy in this market. So, technologically they want to be strong in that respect. They want to be as strong as the other strong player here, and they know that this company has a higher brand recognition. This company is winner in terms of brand recognition, but they would like to invest their resources to start with in this, the reporting and the content quality, rather than on brand promotion. And this is how you actually do your analysis. Start with this kind of diagram with a detailed analysis of, and then answer the questions, understand the segments, assess the opportunity effectiveness, assess the competitive position, and develop your final value package with which you are going to battle. So, this concludes our discussion on opportunity analysis and developing marketing strategy in detail to avail an identified opportunity. At the same time, to keep it in the perspective of the other opportunities, so that resource allocation can be done across 3 identified opportunities that you would like to pursue. So, you will have one set of actions to be followed for B 1, another set for B 2 and B 3, and still retain some of the options that you might like to pursue later in terms of B 4 or B 5. So, fundamentally what we have discussed in this segment is where are we today, where do we want to be, why and how. Thank you.